Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden is on the road today, too, making a visit to the city of Kenosha in the battleground state of Wisconsin, just days after President Trump's visit. On Biden's schedule, a private meeting with the family of Jacob Blake, the black man whose shooting by a white police officer sparked days of destructive protests. The former vice president also plans to speak with business and civic leaders, as well as law enforcement officials. Philip Crowther, international affiliate reporter for the Associated Press, is in Kenosha, outside of Grace Lutheran Church, the site of one of today's events, and he joins us now. Philip, welcome back. Good to see you. So, do we have any details yet of the meeting between former Vice President Joe Biden and Jacob Blake's family?
Yeah, they were just revealed, actually, by Joe Biden inside of Grace Lutheran Church. They can see behind me now. He said that he actually had a phone conversation with the man who is still in hospital. He's out of the ICU, says the former vice president. He also spoke to Jacob Blake's mother. All of this during an in-person meeting that he held at Milwaukee Airport with some family members of Jacob Blake right after landing here on what is essentially his very first campaign trip outside of his home area. Of course, meeting the Jacob Blake family and having a phone call with him is precisely what the president did not do 2 days ago. Most notably, the president didn't even mention Jacob Blake's name during his visit on Tuesday. And of course, remember, it was the fact that Jacob Blake was shot in the back 7 times by a police officer that led to the protests and riots here in Kenosha in the first place.
Well, Philip, ahead of today's visit, Biden said the trip was about, quote, making sure that we move forward. How is this trip being received, and what are some of the public events while he's there?
Well, I'd say, first of all, that there is a little bit of enthusiasm, as you can maybe see here outside of the church, for Joe Biden. His trip has been very much a behind closed doors one, very few opportunities for his supporters to actually see him. What he did here at the church was actually a listening session inside of the sanctuary. There were around 20 members of the community, some community leaders, some members of law enforcement. One police officer was in attendance. There was a protester also who spoke, and essentially the vice president listened to them and then did take the microphone and spoke about what he thinks a Biden administration can do about racial injustice in the United States. He, of course, sees himself as the man who can unite this country during his administration, a very tall order for him, and, of course, bringing reform to police departments across the United States. That is another very, very optimistic ask on behalf of the former vice president, but he believes he can be the one who can get those things done.
Now, Philip, you covered the president's trip to Kenosha earlier this week. Can you compare and contrast these two visits, and what stands out the most?
Well, look, the main thing is that this one was simply less public. We didn't see the president meet the family of Jacob Blake. There might be a photo at some point. It doesn't exist at this point. Then there was a motorcade ride from the former vice president to this church. We didn't see him enter it, and the people who you can see behind me waiting for him are probably not going to get a glimpse of him either. This is probably how the vice president wanted this. He wants to be seen as somebody who came here to listen, to have conversations, and not be photographed or filmed too much. And of course, that is the contrast to what we saw from the president on Tuesday. He was seen in front of ruins of one of the shops that were destroyed during the riots here. 30 buildings altogether had burned to the ground. And then the president had also a very public meeting with law enforcement and the National Guard included, for example. The message is a very, very different one. The president's message was about law and order. The former vice president's message here was essentially that he is here to listen and can maybe take some of those messages back home with him and propose them for some notable changes within a potential Biden administration.
Philip Crowther, international affiliate reporter for the Associated Press, thank you so much for your insights.